always risky. Installing a new version of Zoom can always be buggy. But anyway, seems to be working. Great. So yes, so my background with Sociocracy is that I started, I moved to Croatia where I wanted to start an eco-village. And as I was there, you know, when I got together with the person who I was starting it with, the two of us had such a clear plan of what we wanted to do, how we were going to do it. We were both very, very similar in mentality, both self-made people, you know, and it was really easy while it was the two of us. We basically made a mind map of what we wanted to achieve and how we wanted to achieve it. And when we came back together to look at them, they were absolutely identical, absolutely, you know. So how to grow food, easy. How to build houses, no problem. Dealing with grey water, black water, no problem. How to make electricity, don't know about that, but we'll figure that out. You know, how to earn enough money, that's simple. All this stuff was really, really easy. And what was really fascinating is the one area that both of us had a big empty space in. And what was even more fascinating was we used exactly the same terminology because we didn't have the terminology to express it. Is we said the only area that we don't understand is conflict resolution. We both use exactly the same word, conflict resolution. We have no idea about, we didn't know about community building. We didn't know about all the rest of it. Didn't know about, you know, governance and collaboration and that. And sure enough, while the two of us were working, it was fantastic. It was really amazing. But as soon as the third, fourth, fifth person came into the project, wow. You can imagine. So just at that time, I actually moved back to England for other reasons as well. And just at that time, Transition Brixton was just getting off the ground. So I went to Transition Brixton and started doing all kinds of projects with them, bringing my food growing skills to them and what have you, and trying to find any way that I could learn about working well together. Just at this time, John Croft came to England. There's a big transition gathering, and he came and spoke about dragon dreaming for the first time. It was really amazing. There's, I don't know, 400 people in this hall, big open space session. He introduced it. Out of the 400 people, 3 of us came to listen to John Croft about dragon dreaming. Can you imagine that happening now? So yes, that's how new it was. So I got all these and I tried all these, and many of these tools, you know, learned lots of tools of how to work together, but it still wasn't quite enough. So there was always something wasn't quite, you know, and it was always, you know, ideas were great, projects were great, but it was people, somehow egos, somehow differences of opinions and just characters just destroyed projects for whatever reason. And so I didn't have this magic little, and people kept telling me about Sociocracy. Oh my God, you've got to hear about this Sociocracy, Rakesh. Oh my God, it's blah, 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 blah. What? Oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's going to change the world. What? And they use such big, complicated words and packaged it to make it sound so, I was like, but what actually is it? What does it even do? I just don't get it. So for years, I kept hearing this term sociocracy, but didn't have a clue what to do with it, how to work with it, or anything. And it was then when I was doing, I was actually teaching an EDE, funnily enough. I think Mary Louise was talking about the same course. I was actually teaching an eco-village design education course in Denmark, and we invited one person to come and talk about sociocracy during this 4-week event. And just 10 minutes before his session, he arrived. So we sat down and just, so what actually is sociocracy then? And in 10 minutes, he explained something so simple in such simple, plain English. Just blew my mind. It was like, oh my, what? Oh my, whoa! So you mean then this and then that can't happen and this and oh wow! And it was like, bang, got it, just got it. Simple, plain English. Thank you very much, my friend. And what he explained to me is in different words, but what he explained is if when a group comes together, they come together because of some kind of purpose. Now, unless that purpose is really clearly defined and we all agree on what that purpose is, we perhaps will come in with a very slightly different understanding of that purpose. So for example, and this is me now, this is what he explained, but if, for example, I say, hey, who wants to come start an eco-village? Yeah, I've got some land in Croatia. You know, it's really cheap. It's 500 euros per hectare. You know, we can grow on it. We can build houses on it. It's like, yeah, who's in? Who wants to come? Yeah, I can divide it up into 20 different plots. We all get a hectare each. Yeah, let's do it. And we, you know, so everyone starts coming and, you know, we start designing it. And, but what I wasn't clear on, because everyone has come in with a slightly different understanding of what eco-village means. I wasn't clear, and we didn't all agree on what we meant. So as we start designing it, so me being vegan and, you know, I don't smoke or do drugs and things. So these are kind of things that are relatively important to me. And we can start, so my vision of an eco-village is an eco-village where, yeah, which is drug-free, alcohol-free and vegan, vegetarian. And we start designing it and, oh yeah, great, okay, so we can have like a community garden here, we can have a community forest garden there, then we can build a community space here, and the houses can be in this kind of pattern surrounded, and each one has a pond and each one has this and is neighboring the forest and da-da-da, and we can have this here, and yeah, this can be like a natural swimming pond, you know, this one, yeah, we can put this here, we can put that there, and we can have workshops in this place, and this is where we kill the pigs. This is the abattoir. What? Yeah, there, this, yeah, we need a place where we can kill the pigs. So this is where we have the abattoir. But it's a vegan eco-village. What do you mean, abattoir? No, you said it's an eco-village. So if we're gonna, you know, grow our own food, then, you know, we also need somewhere to kill the pigs before we eat them. Okay, so you can see, because there was this lack of clarity, now all of a sudden there's going to be tension. There's going to be tension because we weren't clear. So what he explained, going back to his original ideas, he said, so because people are not, unless we are really clear on why we are coming together, it's really easy for people to have assumptions about why you are coming together. So the first thing is to clarify, when we are together, working together, doing something together, delivering something together, we do it and we clearly define what that means. So then every decision we make after that is based on, does this help us to get to that end goal, or does it take us away from that end goal? So if someone makes a proposal and we can see, well, okay, that's going to take us in a really different direction, then you object to it. If you can see, it's maybe slightly long way around, but it's actually quite a really nice way around because it also brings these people in, it also involves that, and it's, yeah, I like that, and we'll still get to where we want to go, but in a really beautiful, creative way. Fantastic. Let's go on. So this was all he explained, more or less, is that the common vision, and then every decision we make is based against, does a proposal help us to get to that end goal or not? That's where I'm going to leave it at this stage for now. And what I'm going to invite you to think about is just think about maybe some of the worst meetings you've ever been to. Or maybe not even the worst, but what is it about meetings, you know, coming together and trying to make decisions together that really irks you, that really makes you, you know, like you just don't want to go to these meetings anymore, you know, because it's just so, So what are some of those things? And would people be comfortable using some technology, or should we just type it in the chat here or just record it? I've got a Mentimeter link. I don't know if people are familiar with that. Let's just shout them out. Let's just keep it together. Let's shout them out. So let's hear maybe 5 or 10. And it'd be nice maybe to hear from some of the people who didn't get a chance to introduce themselves. So maybe, I think, Jane, Chris, Tamsin, Eleanor, and Manisha. So maybe it'd be nice to hear from you. So maybe Jane first, and then Chris. What are some of the things that really bug you about meetings, that make you, oh, I just really don't want to be there? Okay, if Jane can't go, Chris? Chris B? No? Okay, Tamsin? Okay, no. Oh, some life, Tamsin, hey!
Sorry, I'm sort of in the middle of a couple of things. I'm listening.
No problem.
I did miss the question though.
So what is it about meetings that really bugs you, that really makes you, like you just don't want to go to meetings because X, Y? Just one thing will do.
Going around in circles and not listening to each other, if people are doing that, yeah, I guess.
Yep, okay. So covering the same ground again and again and again, because we're not hearing, we're not accepting.
People don't do that, just in case anyone's seeing this.
Okay, thank you very much, Tamsin. Eleanor, and then Manisha.
Hi, yeah, simply that we all have biases, and sometimes that makes us rigid, and if not us, then somebody else. So it's quite hard to agree on a commonality if you have slightly different biases and things you want to get out of any endeavor.
Yeah, so maybe people have an agenda. No, it must be done this way, or it must be done this way, and quite often they may not correlate. Brilliant. Manisha? No?
Oh,
okay.
Hello.
Oh, hey.
Hi, thanks for that, Rakesh. I'm still curious as to know what this term sociocracy means.
Come on to that, sure.
Okay, but I think in my experience, I've met a lot of different kinds of people in different projects, and it is very interesting to hear you say, get it clear from the beginning what your expectations are, but I think the language, how to communicate that to other people is sometimes where the barriers come up. I've worked with some very interesting people with very good ideas, but they just don't have that practical bent that maybe some other people do. So it's about how do you harness that energy and transform it, or use it to help that practical side move on, so that everybody feels heard, or that everybody feels like they've contributed and are valuable.
Brilliant, yeah. And Dragon Dreaming can also help with that part of it as well, but maybe that's another subject though. Fantastic. Anyone else? Anyone else who hasn't spoken? What else really bugs you about meetings? And just unmute yourself.
I think that for me, I find them really hard, like thinking and talking at the same time. Like I actually prefer to make decisions not in a meeting, and to read stuff and to think about it. Those I'm a bit more introverted, so it can be dominated by people talking, and I can't think clearly and really decide if we're making the right decisions or discussing the right things.
Yeah, you can't think of all the implications that a particular proposal might have. Yeah, exactly. So you just need time to digest it. Good one. Anything else?
I find it really difficult to engage when there are power dynamics at play. So some ideas are inherently worth more than others because of who they've come from.
Yeah. So yeah, ego and power over and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And so you're making decisions based on the person. I like this person, I don't like that person, therefore I'm going to go for this proposal, even though that proposal may be better, but I like this person, and all this. Yeah. Anything else, Nick?
Yes, I totally agree with Maisie, and I want to add to that. People that make decisions on something they have no knowledge or experience about
Okay.
really bugs me. Like, yeah, do it first, or ask someone who has done it.
Yeah, people with experience, exactly. One last one. Anyone else like to contribute something? Okay, so I've got quite a few. I mean, wow. When, for example, when you know something is, you know, a decision is wrong, or you know a proposal is wrong, and people just will not hear your voice. You say, but, and they shout you down. Yeah, no, and they shout you down. And you try, and you know, then after the meeting, or after the project itself goes wrong, and you say, well, of course that was going to go wrong. That was the most stupid idea. I mean, it was obvious that wouldn't work. So why didn't you say something? I tried several times, and you shouted me down every single time. You just would not hear my voice. I mean, wow, there's so many, yeah. So vested interests and, as you say, circular arguments going around the same thing, having to be at a even just having to go to a meeting where the agenda points just don't impact you in any way, and you have to sit through listening to an hour of stuff about what color toilet paper we get. Like, what the, I just don't care. Just get it and just get on with it. Like, you know, I don't need to waste my time sitting listening to this stuff. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So so yeah, so let's start looking at how sociocracy starts dealing with these things. So if we recognize that those kind of things are problems, they're challenges for us, they don't make meetings exciting for us, they really create some tension in us. How can we turn that around? How can we start making meetings more positive and friendly and, you know, joyful and productive? So first of all, just to answer Manisha's question on the meaning of sociocracy, the term itself was coined, I think, well, it was coined by Auguste Comte, who coined the phrase sociology at exactly the same time. So what he said is that sociocracy, and I'm not a linguist, you know, I only learned what a verb was about 15 years ago when I tried to learn Croatian, so I definitely don't understand language, and I definitely don't understand Greek. But it comes from people. Well, democracy is giving your power to someone else to make decisions on your behalf. So whereas sociocracy is the people making decisions for the people, making decisions for ourselves, for our community. And you can look it up online, you'll get a much better definition than I can give you. But yeah, but as a term, as a word, it was a little bit off-putting for me personally. And then I heard, and I just couldn't get my head around what that word even meant. But when I heard the word dynamic governance, okay, I understand what governance is. It's about, you know, how we make decisions. It's governing. It's okay. And dynamic, meaning it's flexible, it's changeable, it changes, it's according to the environment. Okay, I can get my head around that. I like that definition. So if that works for you better, and quite a few people can't even say the word sociocracy. It's a dynamic governance, much easier. So if that works for you, go for it. So typical, conventional sociocracy, and all right, very brief history of sociocracy. It's the concept was defined, you know, back in the 18 something, and the first people started to write about how this might look back, I think, in the 1890s, and it was the 1920s when the first people started to put it into action. So for those of you who know who the Quakers are, a very open-minded Christian group who are very much into really hearing people's voices, really giving people the opportunities to express themselves, and so on and so forth, so that we make really good decisions for everyone. And so they started, through one of their schools, started implementing Sociocracy. So, you know, having had lots of discussions, they then, a guy called Kees Booker, started his own, had some Quaker school, had a Quaker school in the Netherlands, and started implementing Sociocracy there. So where the kids, the parents, the teachers all had an equal say in the governance of the school. And one of the students from there, his father was a businessman, and he basically, and this guy, Gerard Endenberg, wanted to create a business that was really run by the people. So while he legally may have been the owner, he wanted it to make it feel like it's our business, not my business, but our collective. So he wanted to take what he learned at school, Sociocracy, to apply it to business, which he did very successfully. And that business was about to fail, it was going bankrupt, and he really turned it around, and it's still running now. That was in the 60s. So this was kind of the real first implementation of Sociocracy in a really structured environment in a business. And he, that's a long story. Let's not go too much detail. But from there, it was mostly in the hands, predominantly in the hands of businesses. It was used in businesses, and from that came holacracy. Someone mentioned that. Which again was very, very business oriented. And more recently, so about 10 years ago, when I first started working with Sociocracy, maybe 8 years ago, I can't remember now, my intention was more to introduce it to voluntary groups, the kind of, the informal kind of activism, and, more the kind of permaculture groups and the, different activists and things like that, because I could see it could really bring about a real benefit to those groups. But most of the training courses those days were like £2,000-3,000, and it's like, wow, I don't turn that over in a year teaching permaculture. There's no way I can afford to pay that kind of money for a course. So somehow managed to organize some courses. Then I thought, right, I want to bring this to people at a cost that people can afford. That's why all my courses are by what I call conscious contribution. Give me whatever you feel is fair and reasonable. That's for all of my courses. So we started, and there was a few others. There was James Priest. There's in America, there's an amazing lady called Diane Leaf Christian, and there's a few of us who then started to really bring Sociocracy into the hands of the kind of people that I work with, the kind of permaculturalists and so on and so forth. And so actually the other important thing is, up until about 15 years ago, it was still in the hands of it was exclusively a Dutch thing. And a guy called John Buck was the first person to try and explain it to the English speaking world. So it's fairly new in that respect. So it's only been about 10 years that this has really been in use throughout the rest of the world. And as I say, and that's the time where myself and a few others started to really bring this and make it much more accessible. And but because it has this business background, there were many things about it that just didn't work for many of the groups I was working in. In particular, when you're working for a company and the boss says, right, we have a weekly meeting at 10 o'clock every Monday morning, you go to that meeting because it's your job. And if there's an extra long meeting that you have to go to, you go to that meeting because that's what you're paid to do. In a voluntary group, it doesn't work like that. In a voluntary group where, like a transition town or whatever, everyone is volunteering, everyone is busy. We've all got very busy diaries because there's so much work that we need to be doing to really bring about this transformation. We don't have time for weekly long meetings. So what I've done is I've tried to simplify sociocracy to make it more appropriate for that. And that's what I'll cover in a moment. But first, I'd like to cover some of the basics of how sociocracy works, and then we can look at how to tweak it. So, so the most basic core part of every single sociocratic implementation is the first thing is we agree on what is the project, making some kind of a definition, some kind of a, or if it's not a definition of what we're trying to do, at least a definition of how we behave. So a culture. So in classic sociocracy and holacracy and many implementations, you have what's called a vision, a mission, and aims. So the vision is what it is you want to achieve. So what is it you want to bring about in the world? How is it you want to change the world somehow? The mission is generically, how is it you're going to, what's your kind of strategy as to how you're going to go about doing that? Is it by making forest gardens? Is it by, teaching children? Is it by, depending on what your change is, what's the kind of generic way in which you're going to do it? What's your kind of strategy? And then your aims are very specific. In the next 12 months, we will run 3 introductions to permaculture. We will blah, 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 measurable, smart objectives. Nice and simple. One addition that I make to that, and so I've tweaked Sociocracy, and some of my students kind of lovingly call it Rakocracy. I don't know, sounds a bit cheesy to me, but okay, but I'm running with it for now until someone finds me a better name. But one thing that I bring into there is a culture. Okay, you got your vision, mission, aim, what you want to do, how you want, that's nice. That makes it clear. We can make every single decision based against, are we hitting that or not? But for me, I like to bring in a culture. How is it that we communicate with each other? How is it that we, show respect towards each other? How is it that we express ourselves? How is it that we, creating some kind of guidelines as to what is and what isn't appropriate. How is it that we create a culture that really hears each other, really cares for each other, and really moves together, moves forward together, making sure no one is left behind? What are the things that we can be doing? What is the culture that we can create to ensure that happens? That's something I bring in. So that's Rakocracy. So going back to classic sociocracy, everything is done in circles. So there's no one head person. There is no one who has any more power than anybody else. We're all in a circle. And every decision is made in a circle. So typically anyone can make a proposal, anyone can object to it, anyone can consent to it, anyone can, drive it. Once the projects get bigger, you then have sub-circles around that. And but maybe that's going to be a bit too complicated to explain, so let's just keep it simple for now. But what you do is you do elect 3 or 4 roles so that there's some kind of clarity, because one of the most important things is that everything you do should be transparent. So every decision you make, first of all, must be recorded. So we need someone to ensure everything is recorded. All policies are recorded, I should say. And everybody in the project has access to it whenever they need access to it. So you elect someone to be a logbook keeper, someone who ensures that as soon as a policy is updated or changed, or is a new policy is brought in, everybody has access to that policy. But equally, we also need to make sure that if a policy is being created or is being updated, that everyone is made aware that this is taking place, so that they can see. One basic principle of sociocracy is anyone who is affected by a decision must be given the opportunity to influence that decision. Let me say that again, really important. Anyone who is affected by a decision must be given the opportunity to affect the decision. So that means they can choose if they're just too busy and they just trust you or whatever. They may choose not to engage, but if it affects them, they must be given that chance to engage with the proposal so that they can influence it, they can affect it. And so we need someone who can keep everyone up to date. Hey, there's going to be a policy around hugging, you know, how appropriate is it for us to all hug each other at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, and da, da, da. We want a hugging policy, you know, whatever. I mean, I'm kind of joking a little bit, but actually on courses we do have hugging policies. Because in some places it's totally appropriate, in other places it's not. Maybe some people are very, very happy to hug each other, some people are not, and you know, so let's make a policy. Let's not allow anyone to get stressed about this. And you know, and how is it that we approach this? And so whatever the policy is, we need someone to let people know this policy is about to be created or it's about to be changed. Or if someone says, I don't like this, something about this policy that isn't working, I would like to change it, then again, everyone needs to know. So everyone has the opportunity to be part of a meeting to help change it or update it or bring in a new policy. So we need someone to organize meetings and to let people know what's going on. So that's the second role, to keep everyone informed of what's going on in the project. The third role is someone to facilitate meetings. They're not the boss, they are not making decisions for anyone, but they are there to help facilitate and understand what the end goal is and navigate everyone through to actually getting to where they want to go to. So they are a servant, if you like, of the group in a non-hierarchical way, if that makes sense. It's they're there to do the bidding of the group, which is to get the group to where the group wants to go. And the only decisions they can make, as far as I'm concerned, are which tools are the best tools to use to help navigate the group to the end goal that they want to get to. That's the only decision they can make. So that's basic sociocracy. Those are the roles, and each meeting, each group has all of these people in, and anyone is welcome to come to those meetings. Anyone can contribute to it, and so on and so forth. Now, in conventional sociocracy, each policy meeting is where you sit down and you say, right, we've got these 3 proposals to make, and everyone starts contributing to it. And there is a really nice process as to how to make proposals. I'm not going to go into that now, but it's really, I've used this so many times, and it really is fast. I remember when we organized when we were trying to put together a permaculture, children in permaculture training course, they spent 2-3 days arguing about what content should go in. Then I came into the room and said, all right, do you mind if I do it sociocratically? I used this process, and within 2 hours we had an actual timetable, a syllabus, and people were like, wow, we've just spent days arguing about this, and bang, you've got it. It's very clear, very short, very very precise, and really gets us to a point without having to have loads and loads of discussions and arguments and what have you. So where was I? I've lost my thread as I went off on that tangent. So we've got policies. Yeah, I've lost my thread. Sorry, I need some help here.
Different roles.
Okay, we've got the different roles. We've got, I was going somewhere else with it though. Okay, so basically we have circles, and each circle, yeah, that's it, how the meeting takes place. So each meeting, you kind of typically start with, right, here's a proposal, and everyone goes through this process of trying to create a proposal. And, you know, step by step by step, it could take an hour, could take 2 hours, could take 3 hours to do. And then by the end of it, because everyone has been involved in every, you know, so you kind of start by understanding the problem, you then start looking at solutions to it, you then put together some kind of a proposal, one proposal as to how you can solve all of those issues. And then anyone looks at, well, can anyone see a pitfall in this? Is there anything in this proposal that wouldn't work? And as long as there's no proposals and no objections, nothing that isn't going to work, then we can consent to it and it goes forward. This is time consuming. It does take time. And I think it was Kate who said that, you know, maybe on the fly, she might not be able to think of everything right from the very beginning and not understand all the implications. So maybe this isn't the best way, you know, especially if you've got 3 decisions to make, it could take a long time to get those done. So what I do is I've simplified it in saying that when we have a meeting, when we all come together, this precious time, maybe once a month, maybe once every 3 months, where we all come together to make decisions for our project, important decisions for our project, it needs to be fun. It needs to be efficient. We need to make those decisions quickly, clearly, and have fun while we're doing it. Because it's a precious time when we're all together. What that means is if you've got a proposal, we can't be discussing it in the meeting. All of that work needs to happen beforehand. So when an issue is raised, hey, something's not quite happening so well with this particular, process. So I'd like to look at how to change it, or I'd like to make a policy around this. People need to be invited, right? Who else is excited? Who else is interested? Who else is impacted by that? Who else has the time and energy and passion to deal with this? Right, you go create a working group. That working group can then keep informing people who wants to be informed about what's going on here. And so they can keep everyone informed to say, right, we're at this stage. Anyone want to contribute to this? You've got 1 week to contribute to it online. Next phase of the proposal making. Right, we've now reorganized, we've closed that part. Next part is anyone who wants to start answering some and put proposals forward or put ideas as to how we can address each of the particular issues that make up this problem. Right, you've got maybe a week to do that. And then, right, now we're closed. Next week, who's going to help to come and take all of these answers and make it into a proposal? So maybe you've got a week, maybe 2-3 people might turn up to do that. But at each stage, everyone is given an opportunity to engage. Some of this can be done completely offline. Some of it can be done face-to-face. Some of it can be done, in online meetings and such. But everyone is invited to each stage. Once a proposal is made, then people are said, right, and this is a really key part of Sociocracy is the consent decision making. The way it works is rather than us trying to find a perfect solution, what we're looking to do is we're looking to find the highest common denominator of what kind of proposal can we put together that everyone agrees that if we do this, it's going to help us to get to our end goal. Remember, every decision is based against, does it help us to reach our vision, mission, and aim or not? And so we're looking to make a proposal that everyone says, yeah, if we do this, yes, it will get there. So what we're not looking for is we're not looking for someone to say, I've got a better way to do this. We're not looking for a perfect decision. We're just looking for a decision that everyone says, if we do this, it will help us to get to our end goal. And so we're not looking for perfection. And this is really, really, really important. It just needs to be good enough for now, safe enough to try. good enough for now, meaning it's going to help us to get to where we want to go to in the time. And it's safe to try. There's no reason as to why, if we do this, we might fail, that it will cause some kind of negative impact on us. And so that's what we're testing when we're testing for consent. We're asking, can anyone see, does anyone have an objection to this proposal? And what an objection is a really clear, logical, rational reason as to why, if you do this, we won't get to where we want to go to. So to use a kind of mundane example, if we all decided we're in London and we want to go to a conference, or maybe there's a big reggae party in Birmingham or something, you know, there's a big reggae conference or something, I don't know, whatever, something exciting for us. And we want to be there by 10 o'clock this evening. Now it goes through the night and then we can come back the next day, kind of thing. So we're in London and we want to go to Birmingham, and there's 10 of us, let's say. So someone can say, perfect, I've got a van, I've got a bus, a minibus for 12 people. It's got petrol in it. I can drive you almost for free because I need to get it off to Dover. What? Yeah, I can drive you right now to Dover, but we want to go to Birmingham. We're in London and you're going to Dover and we want, that's not going to help us get there. It's free. Yeah, but that's not going to get us to Birmingham, is it? That's pointless. Whereas if they'd said, actually, yeah, we can get you to Coventry. It's not all the way to Birmingham, but it's getting you most of the way. And then from there, there's public transport, there's, you know, there's buses and there's trains and all kinds of things to get you the rest of the way. Okay, it's not perfect, but it's still good enough. If we leave right now, we'll then have another 4 hours in which to get to where we want to get to. So yeah, we'll do that in time. That's good enough for now. That's safe enough to try. So, and I really like this. I mean, the other way of looking at it is if you imagine, I don't know, who makes compost out of this group? Anyone make their own compost? Yeah, sometimes. If we were to get 10 people to ask them, what is the best way to make compost? The best way to make compost. We want the best technique. How long do you think before we'll get into an argument about the best way to do something? Because each of us has an experience of doing something. We've got a way that works for us. And so for each of us, our strategy really is valid. Our strategy really does work. So just because my way works for me doesn't mean that your way won't work. It doesn't mean that your way may be better or worse than mine. They're all valid, but there's no way we're ever going to find a perfect solution that everyone agrees is the best way. So why even aim for that? So instead of trying to aim for the impossible, let's find the highest common denominator. And from there, we can then make easier decisions. So we're just looking for exceptions. We're just looking, if we make this proposal, will it stop us from achieving our goal? And I realize we're almost out of time. So that's the basics. I mean, there's so much more to Sociocracy, you know, so it's really about, for me, to simplify it, is to create a system where everyone knows when policies are going to happen. Everyone is invited to them, but the only people who need to engage are the people who feel passionate and feel really, yes, I have the time, I have the energy to engage with it, and the process can continue, and everyone is constantly given an opportunity to engage. And then right at the very end point is where we then test for consent, and that's where we then invite everyone to have their say. So they can spend as much time as they want in the build up to it. And obviously, the more people engage with it, the more they understand it, so the more they're likely to be able to consent to it at the beginning. And, you know, so even if they haven't engaged at any stage throughout the process, at least 2 weeks before the proposal is consented to, it gets sent to everyone, or a week or a day, depending on the duration of your projects and things. you get the proposal, and you're still given an opportunity. Is there anything you don't understand about this? Come and talk to me before the meeting, so you can understand the proposal before we get into the meeting. So that way, when we get to the meeting, we just need 5 minutes per policy. We can start the meeting by having fun, by playing some games and being silly and doing whatever it needs to do to make us feel together, to bond, to really connect with each other, whatever is culturally appropriate in your project or your group. But we do something that kind of connects us together. We then bang, 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 go through the policies. We then can then look at, well, or maybe even before then, we could just get quick updates from each group to, what's each group doing, how are they, what's going on, what troubles are they having, so that we can then see, right, do we need to bring more policies in? Do we need to change things around? How can we help each other? And we keep the project short, sharp, so within 2 hours, you can have every 3 months, you can have a really nice check-in. You can find out what's going on in the different parts of your project, consent to all the proposals, and have a really lovely checkout, sharing gratitudes and appreciations, and just telling everyone how you really love them and you really love being in this project with them, and how much you're just really enjoying doing this work. That's my way of doing Sociocracy. I say there's so much more to it. There's lots of really funky tools and things. Is it okay that we spend maybe 15 minutes just maybe answering questions and answers? If you've got anything if there's anyone who really needs to leave right away, if there's a question you have right now, then maybe we can answer that first. But otherwise, it's okay, 15 minutes extra. People okay with that? Yeah. Okay. So for those who are still here, thank you very much. And yeah, any questions, any feedback, anything? And sorry, I'm very, very, very slow at reading, so I don't keep an eye on the chat. I'm dyslexic and I can't absorb reading. I can't read that quickly, so I've not been keeping up to date with what's in the chat. But are there any questions from anyone? Tony?
Yeah, Rak. Thanks. That's been a really good explanation. There's a question. What size group are we talking about here, where it works really well? Because obviously, you mentioned 5 people at the beginning, didn't you? Sort of practically destroying a project. So I'm just wondering what the optimum size would be for something like this.
So I would say something like 20 people is kind of the point at which you need to rethink, how you can engage with everyone, because but this is where you can then start breaking down into sub circles. So again, another thing that I've implemented, typically Sociocracy works where you have each department, should we say, each group, like let's say finance, food growing, building management, whatever groups you have, each of them has their own circle. They govern themselves in their own way, but there's a circle that joins all of them together called the general circle. And so you have 2 people from each of the sub circles who are represented, who are in that general circle. All right, so the typical way that it starts is you start with a general circle, and then if you decide, right, we need a finance team, you create a vision for that finance team. What is that finance team supposed to do? And then you elect someone to basically uphold that vision, to make sure that the vision that you've created is being done. Some people call it a leader, operations leader, and give them power to like a boss. Personally, I don't like that strategy. I'd say people in that group, they're passionate to be in that group. They're passionate about finance. They're passionate about food growing. This group's passionate about, whatever area they're into. Let them work out how to do it. They don't need a boss. Let them do it. And only if there is trouble, if it's not happening, then maybe you might want to relook at that strategy. So you have this person who just upholds the vision. And then you have another person who is a representative, so that's someone from the subcircle who then sits in the main general circle looking after the interests of the subcircle. So if you catch that, the two people in there, one person is making sure that the subcircle is doing what they're supposed to do, and the other person in the general circle is from that subcircle making sure the interests of that group are taken care of. If it was just the other way around, if it was just the vision upholder or the operations leader, as classic sociocracy classifies it, that's very top down. That's like the general circle is like the management circle almost, and they report downwards to say this is what you should be doing. That's not sociocracy. So this double linking, someone from that group who comes into this circle to say, hey, you need to look after the interests of my group. Unlike in some systems, I think in France, I've seen people teach sociocracy in a very strange way, where that person is almost like a union representative saying, no, I think my people all want to walk out and on strike. They don't have any power to say. What they have is they're looking after the interests of the group and say, right, you can't make that decision until I've spoken to my group and they have consented to it because it impacts them. And so this double linking is what makes it unique. And so in this way, you can now split the groups off into smaller groups. If, for example, your food growing group, the food group, ends up having 40, 50 people because you've got a certain number of people who are growing food, another group who is maybe cooking food. So maybe you might then want to split those off. So you have a subgroup of that subgroup. You have the food growing group, and then you have the food cooking group, if you see what I mean. So you can keep the circles down to something like 20 people, 10 to 20 people is kind of a nice number. And in this way, you can have keep it nice and simple. One of the big problems I see with people implementing sociocracy initially is they try and create this really complicated structure from day one. And as you can imagine, that means that you have to have 100 people who are all trained in sociocracy and comfortable with sociocracy from day one. It's not going to happen. It doesn't happen. I've seen so many projects fall away because of that. So again, my strategy, Rakocracy, is I put everyone in one huge circle at the beginning, which I call a pioneer circle. And in this pioneer circle, everybody, again, everyone is equal, everyone has, but everyone makes decisions together. What we do is we give everyone an opportunity to take a role. So everyone at some stage is a facilitator, everyone at some stage is a meeting organizer, everyone at some stage is a logbook keeper. So you really get to learn the roles. And so by the time you split off and say, wow, you finance guys, you're boring us. I really don't want to hear about all this money stuff. Why don't you just go and set up, your own, you can talk about money in your own little group. Time to make a subgroup. Or, I don't know, I can't imagine why, but some people might get bored about hearing about growing plants and food and stuff. I can't imagine why, but some people may be. And so, all right, so maybe it's time to set up a separate food growing group and so on, so whatever. So at that point, you have trained so many people in each of the roles that they can legitimately start it. And that's kind of the criteria. Is there enough of a unique dialogue happening between the group to justify creating a new group, a subcircle? And are there enough people to take on the roles who can competently run that group? That's the kind of, if the answer to those is yes, great, create a subgroup. And then you start creating this. And once you've got enough subgroups, then you disband the pioneer circle, which at this moment has everybody in, and you recreate it just with what in classic sociocracy they call operations leader, I call a vision upholder, and the representatives. So now they're the only ones who have to come to this general circle meeting. And what this general circle meeting is, it's not a management meeting as such. What it is it's just it's like the internet. It's the place where all the connections are made, all discussions have go through that, so that if they're making a decision in one group, it comes through here, and this group says, hold on, that affects my group. You can't make that decision yet until my group have, yeah, okay, and then it comes back through here. Yeah, all good, we're all happy with that, consent, boom. So it's just the place where communication happens. It's not a management group or a management circle. You may want to, for legal reasons, if you're a charity or something, create another sub-circle which has maybe some kind of overall overarching governance kind of, what's it, board of trustees type role, if that's necessary, especially if that's a legal requirement. But otherwise, it's relatively flat. Okay, maybe I've answered 3 questions there. Anything else or any other questions? Yeah, Maisie.
While you were talking about it, I realized that I have actually been part of a sociocracy, but it was kind of brought in to replace a very hierarchical system. And I didn't, it's interesting hearing you talk about how the culture is so important, because we were given I was living in this community house, and the community house was kind of gathered and put in these Zoom calls and told that we had to learn the mandate system, it was called. And it felt, there were, I think the power dynamics and disempowerment of the hierarchical systems were kind of hang-ups that we brought to the sociocracy, and couldn't engage with it as it was meant to give us power. We couldn't see that and kind of understand that as what it was, because we were so used to the hierarchical system. So I know you kind of talked about it and starting as a huge pioneer circle, but how, if you're transitioning from a hierarchical system, then how would you change the culture in between individuals?
So great question. There's several different strategies that I have, and so for each project I'll use a slightly different strategy according to what I can see is really going on. And if people want to hold on to their power, that's one problem. The other side is where people don't want to take their place. They don't want to. No, you're my boss. You make decisions. Tell me what to do. I'll just go and do it. You pay me. I go home. Everyone's happy. Leave me alone. I don't want to know. Fair enough. So depending on the situation, you'll work it slightly differently. But what I find, if I'm trying to implement this, for example, in a big organization, a big group which already has a structure, already has departments, or a community or whatever, what I'll do is I will see, well, who is really, 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 really passionate about this? Is there one group, one department, or a few groups, a few departments that you can see everyone is like, wow, yeah, great, I love this, yeah, this is what I want, yes, and they really see it. These are groups I start with. I'm not even going to try and implement it company-wide or community-wide, because that's just going to take too long, and the chances are there's probably too many people in it who will do their best to destroy it, because they're so used to their existing system. It's like, don't upset my status quo. I've got my privilege now. I've worked myself up to here, and don't touch that. Don't even go near that. So if the whole group isn't passionate about it, it's not really going to happen. So you find those groups who are like, whoa, yeah, great. I remember implementing it in one company. Okay, I was running some permaculture courses and community building experience, which they paid for many of their employees to come to as well. And they started implementing Sociocracy. They managed to get 40 of their managers to come on a Sunday, 2 Sundays in a row. It's like, wow, you guys are serious. You know, out of a company for about 250 people, 40 managers and staff came 2 weekends in a row on Sunday. Like, okay. And I found the groups where everyone from that department was more or less at these training courses. We started with them. And I got so many reports from other people who also work for this company saying, what have you done to these people? They're having so much, they're constantly laughing in their meetings. They're like, they hug each other before they, what have you done to me? This is like, you know, they're having so much fun and they're delivering stuff. And it's like, this is just too weird. What's going on here? And then others get interested, and then you can start bringing them on board. When they see how productive people are, how happy people are working in that environment, then you kind of expand it. But it's, yeah, so to change that culture can be very, very tricky. But, okay, I think we might have to call it a day there. The last thing I guess I can say is that, yeah, if people are interested, either if they're part of a group or a community or something, I'm happy to do like bespoke courses for people, for like transition towns, for whatever projects, companies, whatever. But I also have an existing course, which is, I think it starts in the middle of April. It's 4 Sundays. It's 3 Sundays in a row is the main core part of the course. This is all the content. And then we'll have the 4th one will be optional, which is for anyone who really wants to get a project off the ground, where we'll have, you know, the day, the half day, for you to put your vision, mission, and aim together, for you to create your culture, for you to actually put the structure together. We'll find what is the most appropriate structure for your group. You know, is it the pioneer circle or is it something else? So the 4th session is just an opportunity for you to really work on your project. Then what we do once a month is anyone who studied Sociocracy with me is invited to participate in a free study circle. So anyone who studies with me joins this Roots and Permaculture network, where we share all kinds of things: permaculture, forest gardening, food growing, holistic health, whatever. Everyone joins this, and as part of that, we have a Sociocracy study circle. We had one last night, actually. So anyone who's implementing it has a continuous free access to, to a group of people who are putting it into action, as well as myself. And, you know, so we can keep helping each other to overcome whatever obstacles they're finding. And yeah, end of the day, I want people to start, especially, you know, the activist groups, to really start working well together, and you know, for communities to thrive together. And as I say, what I notice is the so many great ideas are destroyed because of people issues, you know, because people can't get on. You know, we're told right from day one, you know, survival of the fittest. You know, you must all compete against each other. You know, you must be better than the other kid in the class, and you must be the top of the class, and all this rubbish. And so we're constantly told to compete. And it's very rare for people to really get good, positive experiences of collaborating together. And so it's not surprising that so many people struggle, because we just don't have those really positive opportunities. That's why I created this community building experience. Is let's spend 2 weeks together, a month together. Let's create a community, a temporary community. we'll go through all of the pitfalls. We'll show you all of the tools of how to really genuinely connect with each other and make decisions together, and yeah, and solve problems together. And yeah, I've had quite a few people who've come back and say, wow, I just always knew that living together was going to be impossible because people are just horrible. It's just, but I thought I'd come just out of interest, and wow, now I see it's possible. Now I can see, you know, all the conflicts that we did have and how we solved them. Wow, there's hope. Now I'm much more interested in working together again. So yeah, so if anyone's interested, happy to share. Say all my things are done by conscious contribution. People give whatever they feel is appropriate, whatever they can afford, and I'm totally cool with that. Even if it's not money, you know, people can offer other stuff as well. Yeah, that's it. Any last questions or comments before we wrap up?
That was awesome. Thank you very much. I've learnt lots, and we'll be taking it to my MSc student peers tomorrow to talk about. Brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let's just have final words from everyone. So that was Millie, Maisie, then Dorrit.
This is very exciting. Thank you so much for your time. I've really appreciated this. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Dorrit and then Jane. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, really good. But yeah, I kind of have experienced that with XR, I guess. But if it gets bigger and you constantly have got a flow of new people joining, it can be quite tricky to really organize and make it work. But I love the idea, and yeah, we are trying to do that in our community group as well. So yeah.
Yeah, XR has another tweaked version of Sociocracy.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Love it. Thank you, Dorrit. Jane, then Manisha. Okay, Manisha, and then Tony.
Hi. I found that really interesting. So thanks very much, Rakesh. I like the idea of culture, you know, and the idea that across this movement, we are trying to be more inclusive. We are trying to be more diverse. We are trying to create a new system that works for more people than it does today. So that was, I enjoyed the talk, and I'll be interested to know how it works again, you know, on a practical level. Just, I mean, you've given us some examples, and I have a feeling that, you know, we're probably doing, so I can't say this word, but sociocracy,
Dynamic governance.
Thank you. Dynamic governance in different forms, but and to be able to put it in a framework is useful, you know, because I think, you know, the more we own this framework, the more we sort of talk about it, create it, you know, that's the only way we're going to get a new culture, a new system going. So great, thank you.
And also, you know, just because this is the way that I do it doesn't mean that this is the only way to do it. And so so hopefully by explaining how and why I've made these tweaks, people can understand and see that it is permissible to change it and adapt it to their environment, but make sure that it is done for the right reasons. It is done in order to be more inclusive, to be more engaging, to be easier, to be, you know, not change it to make it so that someone has more power over someone else and all this rubbish. So yeah, by all means, tweak. Beautiful. Thank you, Manisha and Tony.
No, yeah, thanks, Rak. It was really good introduction, and yeah, lots to think about, really. You know, particularly about whether or not it can be applicable to, you know, we're essentially a trustee-led organisation. So I thought that point about the management circle that's quite interesting. It's an interesting way of doing it, I think.
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
board of trustees, as I say, is just another subcircle, but
Yeah.
what that subcircle does is it makes sure that whatever obviously everyone decides on what the vision, mission and aim is and the culture is, but they just make sure it's in line with whatever the charitable memorandum is.
Yeah.
So that they're making sure that it is within the legal boundaries of what the organization is.
Yeah.
So,
and I like the way that's collaborative rather than top down, and like giving out policies and edicts, and so you have something which is, like say, something which guides, rather than rather than sort of commands. I thought that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads more that I can say about Sociocracy in terms of where it really works well is more in line in terms of policies as opposed to operational decisions. Operational decisions, who's going to go and pick the carrots today? You don't need Sociocracy for that. That's just you use a Kanban. All right, my turn. Yeah, I'll do it. Who's going to go and clean the toilets this week? Yeah, that's operational stuff. You don't need Sociocracy for that. But how we grow our food, may need some kind of policy, like we'll grow it in a way that is organic. That needs a policy. And so when we're going to have this big reggae party, that's an operational decision. That's not a policy decision. So you may choose to use Sociocracy for it, but you don't need to. But all policies must go through the whole Sociocratic process. Operational, and this is another thing that I see a lot of people get wrong, or it not wrong, but it slows them down a lot because they're trying to make using consent decision making in places where it's just not necessary, where it's just not necessary because it's an operational decision. Anyway, tons more I can say. If you're interested in the course, there's still stuff coming up, and if you want something more specific for your group, feel free. I'm also going to do this talk again tomorrow, so if you've got other people who might be interested in this, and I have no idea what I'm going to say again then, so it could be all completely different to what I've just said today. But who knows, maybe we even get through it quicker and we have more time for questions and answers or whatever. But feel free to come tomorrow as well if that's useful. So take care, everyone. Lots of love, big hugs. See you somewhere. Have fun.